what's going on. Did you see what's going on? Obviously, you've seen what's going on in California. But the governor gave this creepy speech where he was talking about speculators coming in and talking about what to do with the land of all these homes that have been burnt down while it's still only 6% contained. And he did this little dance like, I've been talking with these, with the governor of Hawaii about what to do. We got some ideas of speculators.
I mean, I've got questions, sir. I don't find you to be a truth teller based on a long, long history of your.
When two of media's most formidable voices, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly, set their sights on a single political figure, the result isn't just commentary, it's a public evisceration. They recently unleashed a tag team takedown, so savage it left no hair gel untouched, exposing a politician who has mastered the art of appearance while presiding over what they describe as a state and managed decline. They argued with brutal clarity that behind the polished veneer, the perfect smile, and the carefully crafted sound bites lies a staggering record of hypocrisy, incompetence, and a chilling detachment from the very people he was elected to serve. This wasn't just a critique, it was an autopsy of a political phenomenon, a deep dive into the man who they claim is the undisputed king of style over substance.
Talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
With a big smile on his face. Look at the little wiggle he does with his shoulders. Speculator, watch this. Talking to Josh. Look at this little wiggle. It's excited about the possibilities of speculators coming in. And he's saying we're move forward. We're going to move forward on that. These people lost their homes. A lot of those people don't even have fire insurance because the fire insurance pulled out.
Joe Rogan kicked things off by immediately targeting Gavin Newsom's most obvious feature, his persona. He leaned into his microphone like a man who just witnessed something both absurd and deeply unsettling. Rogan called him one of the most performative public figures in modern politics, a man who seems to be perpetually auditioning for a role he was already given. He laughed, not with humor but with a sense of disbelief, describing Newsom's hair as a marvel of engineering, a helmet of perfection seemingly sealed in place with industrial-grade gel and unchecked presidential ambition. Rogan joked that if you dropped the governor into the eye of a hurricane, the world around him would disintegrate, but that hair would remain flawless, as if it held diplomatic immunity. But the hair wasn't just a cosmetic choice. Rogan framed it as the perfect metaphor for the man himself, sculpted, polished, completely untouched by chaos, and fundamentally disconnected from the messy reality on the ground. He recounted a bizarre speech Newsom gave while fires raged in California, where he spoke of speculators and land use with a strange, excited wiggle in his shoulders. To Rogan, it showed a man not filled with dignity for the victims, but with a desperate, almost giddy need for attention, thrilled by the political possibilities that tragedy presented.
Had no dignity. That's what I was missing. There was no dignity. It just looked like a man desperate for attention, and whenever DeSantis was scoring points on him, he would interrupt over and over to try to talk over the points as just that's like a middle school debate tactic, which is pathetic and not. And to these illegals who are now getting Medicaid in California, thanks to him. Illegals. So this guy's priorities are not with keeping people safe at all. He doesn't care about the crime, about the illegals, and obviously not about the fires, which after the fact, hey, sure, so could somebody let me know how that happened?
Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician, just a stone cold, narrative driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, that's a human being.
That sense of performance turned into a charge of outright hypocrisy when Rogan shifted to Newsom's pandemic leadership. His tone hardened, seasoned with the kind of raw outrage that only blatant hypocrisy can inspire. He laid into the governor's lockdown logic with the precision of a surgeon finding a tumor. In one breath, Newsom was on television demanding strict stay-at-home orders, shuttering small businesses, closing schools, padlocking playgrounds, and even canceling church services. He was the stern face of public health, warning Californians of the dire consequences of non-compliance. Yet in the next breath, he was photographed dining maskless at the ultra-exclusive French Laundry restaurant, a 3 Michelin star establishment where tasting menus cost hundreds of dollars per person. He was surrounded by lobbyists, enjoying fine wine and company, while the rest of his state was being told they couldn't even see their own families. Rogan painted the scene as a piece of dystopian sketch comedy, the king feasting in his high tower while the peasants were ordered to microwave their hope and wash their hands with tears. It was an act so brazen that Newsom initially tried to lie about it, claiming the dinner was outdoors before photos proved otherwise. To Rogan, this wasn't just a mistake, it was the ultimate tell, revealing a ruler who believed the rules he created for others simply did not apply to him.
We begin with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who spent the weekend trying to avoid responsibility as the fires were still burning by dropping by the Pod Save America podcast for an attempt to clean up his own image.
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. My own team saying what happened, and I want to get the answers. And
you're the governor.
They wasn't getting straight.
This elite detachment wasn't just a personal failing. Rogan argued it was the central philosophy of Newsom's governance, a philosophy that was having devastating real-world consequences. The most obvious result was the Great California Exodus. Rogan began listing the giants of industry who had packed up and fled the Golden State as if reading a final roll call at a funeral. Tesla, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, and countless others, all gone. But it wasn't just corporations. He described the steady stream of ordinary families, entrepreneurs, and even celebrities voting with their feet, leaving behind a state they once loved. Rogan mocked Newsom's attempts to spin this departure as anything other than a direct referendum on his leadership. He said it was like watching the smart kids quietly exit the party while Gavin grabbed the microphone to play DJ at a prom nobody wanted to attend anymore. He hammered on the absurdity of a state with the highest taxes in the nation still suffering from crumbling infrastructure, rampant potholes, rolling power outages, and chronic water restrictions. He joked that Californians were paying luxury prices for a government that functioned like a discount app run by inexperienced philosophy majors. Newsom treated California like a progressive utopia, but for a growing number of its former residents, it had become a cautionary tale with palm trees.
Do you see what Gavin Newsom said to him?
No.
Gavin Newsom said that you shouldn't be posting this. That we're going to make it illegal. I'm going to sign a law. And he said, "Professor, suck on these nuts."
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Elon retweets altered Kamala Harris campaign. Says manipulating voices in an ad like this should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. And then he says I checked with renowned world authority Professor suck on these nuts. And he said parody is legal in America.
Oh my God.
What a wild dude.
Wow.
What a wild dude. Because he's not scared of those folks.
Newsom was basically almost burned alive. The governor of California. Take a listen.
We went up to one of the canyons on the fire, sitting there feeling we're a good quarter mile away. I'm not making this up, video to bear it out. All of a sudden, we see an ember, hits the tree goes on fire, 100 seconds. God is my witness, may have been 90 seconds. The house is in flames. I have embers of flames. They're taking it off my hair, and we're running back into the car. Winds are swirling around. Garbage cans were in the air, and we were getting the hell out of there.
Okay, why is he saying as God is my witness and I'm not making this up before he tells the story? Truly,
For those who couldn't afford to leave, the reality on the ground had become a nightmare. Rogan shook his head with the frustration of a man trying to solve a riddle written by lunatics as he described California's spiraling homelessness and crime crises. He painted a grim picture of major cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles, where sidewalks were blanketed with tents, used needles, and human waste. He questioned how a state could pour billions of dollars into programs only to see the streets devolve into a dark parody of progress. Rogan argued this wasn't compassion, it was incompetence wearing a mask of empathy, a long-running performance of failure theater where politicians act concerned while the problem gets exponentially worse. He connected this directly to Newsom's warped priorities, pointing out that while citizens struggled with safety, Newsom was championing programs to provide free taxpayer-funded healthcare to undocumented immigrants. At the same time, criminal justice reforms had turned shoplifting into a low-risk hobby, with viral videos showing brazen thieves clearing out store shelves with no fear of consequence. Rogan insisted that this was the direct result of a governor more concerned with ideology and optics than with the basic safety of his people.
Talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state,
and you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
different answers. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story.
So you decided the thing to do would be to go on Pod Save America to talk about it because it's in the end, it's all about you. This is another David Muir, folks. He is just as vain and worried about his image in the middle of this emergency as David Muir with his little fake fireman's jacket and clothespins.
Just when you thought the case was closed, Megyn Kelly stepped in, trading Rogan's raw, visceral outrage for the cold, sharp precision of a prosecutor at closing arguments. She took a scalpel to Newsom's record, dissecting it piece by piece. She ripped apart the notion that California's school system was a beacon of progress, instead labeling it a slow-motion academic collapse disguised in progressive buzzwords. Under Newsom's watch, she argued, classrooms had transformed into ideological battlegrounds. She painted a stark picture of a system where children were falling further and further behind in basic skills, unable to read or do math at grade level, but were at least being lectured on complex social theories and confusing identity acronyms they couldn't possibly understand, let alone spell. Kelly mocked the doublespeak of educational equity, arguing that parents weren't asking for equity, they were begging for results. When they demanded better academic outcomes, all they received in return were glossy pamphlets about emotional awareness and another crippling property tax increase. She compared the experience to ordering a steak and being handed a coloring book, a patronizing and utterly useless substitute for what was actually needed.
And on X, I addressed Gavin Newsom personally. He follows me, so I tagged him. And I'm going to be honest, I begged him to please stop this for all the reasons stated on our YouTube feed. And he didn't get back to me. But I think I was shooting at the wrong public official who followed.
Governor Gavin Newsom told the Los Angeles Times Panera would not be exempt from the law. The spokesperson also denied a claim, the Bloomberg piece, which cited sources close to the matter, that Newsom pushed for an exemption that applies to businesses that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item, calling the report absurd. So is it a fake story?
Or is it something that they
might have corrected
hustled
course
on and
quickly.
corrected course quickly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps nothing illustrated the rot more clearly than a bizarre scandal that became known as Panarake. Kelly highlighted the story with surgical precision. A new state law championed by Newsom, AB 1228, raised the minimum wage for most fast food workers to a staggering $20 an hour. However, buried in the legislation was a strange and highly specific exemption. The new wage didn't apply to establishments that bake and sell their own bread as a standalone item. It was later revealed that a billionaire, Greg Flynn, who owns a network of Panera Bread franchises across California, was also a significant donor to Newsom's political campaigns. The connection was explosive. While Newsom's team furiously denied any quid pro quo, calling the report absurd, the optics were disastrous. It appeared to the public as a textbook case of cronyism, a legislative carve-out designed to benefit a wealthy political ally at the expense of thousands of workers. It was a perfect bite-sized example of how power seemed to operate under Newsom. One set of rules for the masses, and another more convenient set for the connected elite.
Big Daddy got out there with his bazooka and was like, I solved this problem, and you governors better freaking go along or you're gonna get it. And I'm not kidding around. I'll read you what he posted. Stand by. It's amazing. Okay, he posts the following. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women's. So the important thing is, how is his hair? Did it or did it not have embers in it? And you tell me what the answer is to my question about what the press would be doing to Ron DeSantis if he swung by the Ruthless podcast in the middle of the hurricane. The fires are still burning. There's zero purpose in going on Pod Save America other than to burnish his own image.
And of course, that's all he cares about, right? That's why he tells this harrowing story.
With his state facing this cascade of crises, an exodus of talent and capital, rampant crime, failing schools, and accusations of cronyism, Newsom adopted a peculiar and telling strategy. He started picking fights with other states. Kelly and Rogan both zeroed in on his obsession with dragging Florida and Texas and their Republican governors into every speech and interview. Instead of addressing the rolling blackouts or the homeless encampments in his own state, Newsom was busy running campaign-style ads in Tallahassee and Austin. Kelly portrayed this not as a sign of strength, but as a desperate act of deflection. It was the move of a politician who knew his own record was indefensible, so he tried to change the subject, hoping to build a national profile by creating a foil. It was less governance and more influencer behavior, a constant effort to draw a contrast while completely ignoring the imploding reality of his own jurisdiction. He was a governor running for president from a state that was, by many metrics, falling apart. In the end, Rogan and Kelly's combined assault painted a devastating portrait. They presented Gavin Newsom not merely as a flawed governor, but as the living embodiment of a dangerous political trend, where charisma masks incompetence, where slogans replace solutions, and where polished presentation is used to sell systemic failure. He was the ultimate triumph of image over reality. But the most chilling part of their entire takedown was the final terrifying punchline. Rogan imagined Newsom pitching his presidential campaign to the rest of America like a slick salesman offering timeshares in a hurricane zone. He'd flash that rehearsed focus-grouped grin, wave his hands through the smoke and gridlock of his own making, and promise to do for the entire nation what he had already done for California. As Rogan shook his head, he concluded that if that single thought doesn't terrify people, then nothing will. They weren't just criticizing a man, they were sounding a 5-alarm fire bell about a political product, packaged and sold as a solution that they believe is actually a poison.